Okay. I get the feeling that the people around the room don't actually know what I do, because no one's actually mentioned it until now. And the title of the speech I give, The Magic of Belief, actually has got a lot to do with what I do. And what I do is I am a hypnotist. I hypnotise people. And it tends to be a little bit more exciting when people actually know that before I walk in the room. But that's fine. We can work with it. With being a hypnotist, a lot of people mistake that for being a magician, because the only place that I'm generally seen is up on stage as a hypnotist, and magicians are up there at the same time. The difference between being a magician and being a hypnotist is hypnosis is probably as close to real magic as you will ever get, where magic is simply a trick. And that's how I like to start my day. So who would like to volunteer while I show you a magic trick? Come on, someone's got to stand up and come and join me. And I promise I won't hypnotise you yet. Yep, perfect. Okay.
He doesn't come back as a woman.
Here's round pick a card. Now, as you see, I can see what this card is. And would you like to show everyone else in the room? You got to tell you. You got to tell you. That's it. Queen of Clubs. Okay, so for this trick to work, it's a mind power thing. I need you to concentrate on the Queen of Clubs. Okay? Run that name over and over and over and over in your mind. Queen of Clubs, Queen of Clubs, Queen of Clubs. Okay? Hand the card back to me. And watch as I put it roughly centre of deck. Okay? Now, are you concentrating incredibly hard on that? Yep. Totally? So you've done pretty well. You brought it back to the top of the deck.
Yeah.
Okay, that was very impressive. Put your hands up. Okay, now we're going to put it there. We're going to put that hand on top. Now hold it tight. Really tight. Okay? Now you've got a Queen of Clubs. I've got a Blackjack. Okay? I think your Queen of Clubs is the most important card because you chose it. So it should be at the top of the deck. So, do you know any magic words? Never watched Harry Potter. Okay. Pop, abracadabra. And look, what has happened?
Yeah.
Your Queen of Clubs has jumped straight through your hand. What have you got? One blackjack? Okay. Now that's not hypnosis, but it is a trick I learned. And I'll tell you a story. Thank you very much. And I'll tell you a story. And that this actually comes down to mind training rather than belief. Okay? And we'll get onto the belief later. But the mind training in that means I need to learn how to use my left hand to do what I've just done. And it really isn't that easy to learn to use something that you stopped using 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
When Sister Bernadette tied my hand behind my back and made me write with this one, I stopped using this hand.
Yeah.
And that stopped my brain working the right way or the most effective way. But that's a totally different story. I'm actually here tonight to talk about belief rather than the mind. So let's hope and believe that I can use technology. Because you see, 578 years ago, a 17-year-old girl dressed as a boy, and that's important. She was dressed as a boy. She was not dressed as a man, stood in front of her king and said, if you put me at the head of your army, I will drive those English out of our country. And that's exactly what the king did.
You said she'd slipped into the city. The English are still besieging on the outside. How did it come to battle then?
It took a little while because what the theologians had said was test her, send her to Orleans with troops. But they hadn't actually really sorted out what was going to happen when she got there. They hadn't sorted out a chain of command. It's extraordinary. The siege has been going on for months and months, and in just 4 days of fighting, Orleans is free and the English are driven away. And you get the sense of this overwhelming certainty, this overwhelming charisma that Joan brought as an ingredient that just hadn't been there. And her troops begin to believe they can win, and the English begin to believe they can't. And that's what makes all the difference.
And her,
slipped into the city.
Stop. And her troops began to believe that they could win, and the opposing troops began to believe they could not, and that is the difference that made. 4 days later, the war was won and the war was lost, or at least the battle. The war did continue. But they were fighting for 8 months before a 17-year-old girl, dressed as a boy, holding a flag, stood at the front of the forces. That's belief. That's where I'm heading towards today. If you believe it, it will happen. If you don't believe it, it won't happen. How about, just for the hell of it, I show you what belief can do. Can everyone put their hands out in front of them like that? Okay. Now I want you to put your hands together like you're praying. Interlock your fingers, like us lazy boys used to do, instead of praying proper like. Hold the 2 fingers closest to you and hold them apart, making sure the back of your hand is tied together. Hold those fingers apart. Now I want you to focus on your fingers, and I need you to imagine that I have just placed in the tip of each of those fingers a magnet, and those magnets are drawing together. Feel the strength of those magnets as they start to pull your fingers together. The stronger, the longer you look, the stronger they get. And those fingers move closer and closer and closer together. And it's interesting when you look around, the people who are focusing, their fingers are as close as mine are. Those who are looking around the rest of the room aren't focusing, the fingers are still well and truly out.
That's not true.
Okay, then I apologise. Some of us... Okay. Next game. Hands out like this. This time I'd like you to close your eyes. Turn one hand over. Now imagine I have just placed 2 Brisbane phone books in that hand that is facing the ceiling. Feel the weight of those phone books. On the other hand, imagine that I have just tied 2 massive helium balloons that are going to start tugging upwards and upwards and upwards. And the weight of the books are forcing your hands down while one hand is being tugged higher and higher and higher by those balloons. Now this is your imagination working here. Feel the weight. Feel the weight of those books. Feel that arm being tugged higher and higher by the balloons. And now open your eyes and look at your hands. Some people stayed. Where were your hands? Del, would you like to come and join me?
No.
Come on. Would you like to come and join me again? You can come too if you'd like. Again, we're talking about belief. Okay? So what I'd like each of us to do is put our feet about shoulder width apart. Okay? Now take one foot and put it forward so that your heel and your toe line up. Perfect. Okay, now I'd like you to focus on that foot. Looking hard at that foot. As as you focus on that foot, feel it start to push into the floor. As it pushes into the floor, notice it getting heavier. And as it gets heavier, imagine it's pushing harder and harder and harder into the floor. Now, use that imagination of yours and feel a sticky, gooey, super glue type substance start to appear between your foot and the floor. And that super glue type substance might start at the front of your foot and work back, or it might start at the heel and work forward. But either way, it will fill that entire void between your foot and the floor. Feel the warmth of that gooey substance. Feel the heat as it generates and moves into your foot. Feel that heat starting to cool. Feel that gooey substance starting to harden. Notice as it gets harder and harder and harder and sticks. And notice that foot is now stuck to the floor. And the moment you know that foot, the moment you know 100% that that foot is stuck to the floor, you can try and lift it and find you can't. The moment you know that, you can try and lift it and find you can't. Isn't that exciting? Isn't that exciting? Now, have you ever had anything like this happen before? No. It's interesting, isn't it? How about you? Has that ever happened to you before? No. Okay. Can we continue? Can I borrow your hand? Okay. What I'd like you to do is take that feeling that you've got there of the foot being stuck to the floor and bring it up through your body and into your hand. And now feel that hand stick to your head. Now I can take it off. I can't take it off. I can take it off easy, but when I put it back on, it sticks 100 times tighter to your head. And now that hand, just like that foot, is stuck to your head. And you can try, if you like, to take it off and find you can't out of your head. Put it right there and stick it to your head. Totally and completely stuck to your head. Would you like to have a go, Deborah?
He'll put his wig off.
Totally and completely stuck to your
What's going to put
head.
his wig off in a minute?
Ladies and gentlemen, what you are seeing is totally and completely impossible. It is simply not possible what has happened here today. What we have is the power of belief. If you believe, it can happen. Or if you don't believe, that is where it is even more dangerous. Far more dangerous. For instance, what was your name? Greg. Greg, what I'd like you to do is just look up a bit. Okay? And now I'd like you to imagine that you've just woken up in the morning and you've got a dream, and that dream has started to vanish. And the more you look for that dream, the more it disappears. And the more it disappears, the more it's gone. Do you know that feeling? You're having that feeling now, aren't you? Okay, what I want you to do is take that feeling and wrap it around your name. It's gone. And it's just disappeared through those doors. Did you see it go?
Trust me.
And then it's gone. So, what's your name? Let it go. You forget. Totally, completely forget. Now say your name and find you can't. And find you can't. Try and say your name and find you can't. Try and say your name and find you can't. And it's gone. Now if I put it back, what was your name? Greg. And if I take it again, what was your name? You can have it back through it. Your hand is free. Your hand is free. So is your foot. Your hand's free too. And your foot. Thank you very much for being my accomplices today. Is your foot free? It's Now this is, I play games with this. It's not hard to see that I enjoy playing games with this, okay? But there's a very important side to this, and I'd like to explain to you what that is. My reason, I guess, for being here tonight, it comes down to my mum, who currently is 73 years old. And she has a belief that at 73 years old, you're pretty much past it. You're pretty much just waiting out your time. And this, the problem I've got is she's my mum. So she's not going to listen to a word I say. So I'm hoping that there's someone in this room that's 73 years old, or 72, or 74, who's going to say, well, hang on, this belief that my mum's got, that it's over, I'll just sit down and wait, is a stupid belief. At 73 years old, there is a lady in Toowoomba who used to, I don't know her name and I apologise, and I'm going to look that up one day, who used to go to athletics with her daughter, and she would hold the bags of all the 55-year-old ladies that went to athletics and ran around the track. That was at about 73 years old. Today, she holds every world record for every thing she enters, and she's now been a professional athlete for 25 years. Okay, so I think she's just over 100. And it's true. There isn't anyone else show up. So she hasn't got that hard a deal to make a record. But she's there 25 years later. Okay. And this is the other than doing magic tricks and playing with hypnotism, this is the point I hope to make today. This is what I'd like to pass on to you, because the way I finish off is by saying there is a very good chance that one of the people in this room, one day, very soon, will be sitting across the desk from a doctor who will say, look, it might be time for you to go home and put your affairs in order. Now that is a belief that's being passed from one side of that table to the other. And I know, and I actually have a personal story about that now. My secretary, Teresa, who is the most fabulous person in the world, I could not survive without her. She completely organises me. Her mum, very recently, had to have tests, and the tests were surrounding cancer. So she's been going to this doctor, this Ipswich doctor, for 30 years or so. Never before has the receptionist called her and said, hi, just calling to see how you are. But this day the secretary calls her and says, hi, just calling to see how you are. Oh, and by the way, we've got the tests back and the doctor needs to talk to you, but he can't do it right now. And I don't know how much longer or later it was. But that afternoon, Teresa's mum said to her, look, it might be time for you to start clearing the house out. Again, this is the negative, the bad beliefs. The good beliefs, totally the opposite. You can do anything, absolutely anything. And that's pretty much where I'd like to finish off if I've entertained you tonight. One more thing. What I do as a hypnotist, I give my time and my show, because this here is a little bit of a comedy hypnosis show I do, where I get people on stage and make them, I don't do chickens, but I do lots of other stuff. I had 120 kilo publican pole dancing. Try saying that 10 times fast, not too long ago. I give that away free to people who are looking to raise money. And so if you consider, if you're saying to yourself, maybe we'll do a trivia night, you can maybe do a hypnosis night where you can point and laugh at all the people that are up the front. Okay. Thank you again to my collaborators, and I'll shut up.